Start recording. Stop recording. But voiceover off.
Good afternoon, folks. It is Friday, May the 21st or something like that. And it's almost, but not quite, the start of a long weekend. I was hoping to come at you live from the Wettlaufer Outdoor Amphitheater, also known as my backyard, but it's kind of windy out there, and it's not the funnest thing to do, if that's a word, to read when your pages are slomping around like that. So, we're going to do it in here, in the company of our friendly neighborhood budgies, and just go from there. So today, our book is called My Weird School. Mr. Hind is Out of His Mind by Dan Gutman. As you may or may not recall, the My Weird School books are written from the perspective of AJ, also known as Arlo, who is, I want to say, a second grader, and he also writes like he talks. So it makes it kind of fun to read, but it does definitely help the story out. So, let's start this off, once we find the proper section. Book jacket information. Something weird is going on. Music class is awesome. The teacher, Mr. Hind, raps, breakdances, and plays bongo drums on the principal's bald head, but he goes too far when he tries to make AJ kiss Andrea in the school play. Yuck! Will AJ survive? That's a good question. Will he indeed? Dedication to Emma. Ooh, table of contents. Chapter 1. Boring snoring, Mr. Loring. Chapter 2. Goody two-shoes, Andrea. Chapter 3. The one-man funky groove machine. Chapter 4. The plot to get rid of Mr. Hind. Chapter 5. Chapter 5, Mr. Hind Gets Funky. Chapter 6, Beauty and the Beast. Chapter 7, K-I-S-S-I-N-G. Chapter E-I-G-H-T, The Play. Chapter 9, TV at Last. Chapter 10, and the winner is... And Chapter 11, One Last Song. Mr. Hind is Out of His Mind. Chapter 1. Boring snoring, Mr. Loring. My name is AJ, and I hate school. I hate reading. I hate writing. I hate arithmetic. But there's one horrible subject that I really hate more than anything else. Music. Music is dumb. Music is the most boring subject in the history of the world. Why do we need music class in school anyway? It's not like I'm going to grow up to be a singer or anything. When I grow up, I'm going to be a professional dirt bike rider. In first grade last year, the music teacher, Mr. Loring, made us sing all these totally corny songs from prehistoric times, like Row, row, row your boat, and Michael, row the boat ashore. Mr. Loring loves boats, I guess. He's weird. He's about 1,100,000 years old, and he has long gray hair. Mr. Loring told us that when he was a kid, back in the last century, TV wasn't even invented yet. Can you imagine living in a world without TV? It must have been horrible. I would die if I didn't have TV. Mr. Loring's favorite song for us to sing was Who Stole the Cookie from the Cookie Jar? You know the song. Who stole the cookie from the cookie jar? AJ stole the cookie from the cookie jar. Who, me? That's you. Couldn't be. Then who? Ryan stole the cookie from the cookie jar. I used to like that song, but Mr. Loring made us sing it so many times that I never want to eat another cookie for the rest of my life. Mr. Loring's other favorite song was Five Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed. The song got really old too. If any monkeys ever jumped on my bed, I would sell the bed. That's disgusting. I don't even like it when my sister jumps on the bed. Forget about monkeys. Everybody line up, said my teacher, Miss Daisy, after we finished pledging the allegiance. Line up for what? We all asked. It's time to go to music, Miss Daisy said. Yippee! Said Andrea Young, this really annoying girl with curly brown hair. Boo! Said just about everybody else. Nobody except Andrea and her friend Emily wanted to go see boring, snoring Mr. Loring. Andrea loves everything about school. She even loves homework. One day, Andrea asked Miss Daisy if we could have more homework. Can you imagine asking your teacher to give you homework? Andrea is weird. Chapter 2. Goody Two-Shoes, Andrea. Miss Daisy let Andrea the little brown noser, be the line leader when we walked down the hall to music class. Her little crybaby friend Emily was the door holder. I walked with my pals Ryan and Michael. We had just turned the corner outside our classroom when I saw the most horrible thing in the history of the world. It was a sign on the wall of the office. Next week is TV Turn-Off Week. Don't forget to turn off your TV. Oh no, Ryan groaned. Say it's not true. I'll die without TV, said Michael. TV Turn-Off Week is the worst week of the year. It's the worst week in the history of the world, I said. What are we going to do all week without TV? Asked Ryan. I might go crazy, said Michael. It was even worse than we thought. The sign said that TV Turn-Off Week had been such a success last year that they decided to make it TV Turn-Off Month this year. 4 whole weeks with no TV. Guys, this is the end of the world as we know it, I said. Oh, you boys are silly, Andrea said. TV is for silly dumbheads anyway. I never watch TV. I'd rather spend my time singing or playing a musical instrument. Andrea takes violin lessons, and piano lessons, and dance lessons, and singing lessons, and just about every other kind of dumb lessons they have. If they give lessons in anything, Andrea takes them. If they gave lessons in how to take lessons, Andrea would probably take those. My mother told me that music cleans the soul. She said as we walked past the art room, maybe you should try taking a bath, I said. Ryan and Michael laughed at my funny little joke. AJ, you wouldn't be so mean if you tried singing instead of sitting around watching TV all the time, Andrea said. I love to sing. I can sing all the songs from Annie. That's my favorite movie. Then Andrea started singing that song about the Sun coming out tomorrow. It was horrible. The police should use Andrea's voice to punish criminals in jail. Can you sing solo? I asked. Andrea, when she finally stopped. Sure I can, she said. Then why don't you sing so low we can't hear it? Ryan and Michael cracked up at my funny joke again. They are true friends. You're mean, Andrea said. Please hold your tongue, AJ, said Miss Daisy. Then she told me to be quiet because she knew that I was going to stick my tongue out and hold it. Finally, we got to the music room. Mr. Loring wasn't there yet, so Miss Daisy told us to sit on the rug. Last year, my first grade teacher told us to sit Indian style, but she got in trouble because some Indian people didn't like it. So she told us to sit like pretzels instead. Miss Daisy doesn't tell us to sit like Indians or like pretzels. She just says, crisscross applesauce, which doesn't mean anything at all. I sat in the second row next to Ryan and Michael. Andrea and Emily sat in the front row, of course. Miss Daisy said we could talk quietly until Mr. Loring arrived. Remember when Mr. Loring had us sing Jingle Bells? Michael asked. Yeah. What's a bobtail? Michael asked. You sing Bells on Bobtails Ring, but I never knew what a bobtail was. Beats me, said Ryan. I think a bobtail is a kind of car, I guess. Nobody names a car a bobtail, said Michael. Bob backward is still Bob, Ryan said. And tuna backward is a nut. Tuba backward is a butt, I said. I used to have a fish named Fred, said Ryan. What does that have to do with bobtails? Asked Michael. Nothing, Ryan said. I was just thinking about Fred. Suddenly, that goody two-shoes Andrea turned around. You boys are dumbheads, she said. A bobtail is a little furry animal with a short tail. Everybody knows that. She was probably right, but I don't like Andrea Young telling me anything. She used to sing Jingle Bells. Then she started singing Jingle Bells. Who asked you? I interrupted. You don't know anything about music. Do too, Andrea said, all mad. I've been playing the piano ever since I was 4 years old. Don't you get tired? I asked. I thought that was a pretty funny joke, but nobody laughed. Can't win them all. I can even play a Beethoven sonata, Andrea bragged, all proud of herself. You play with Beethoven's snot? I said. That's disgusting. Andrea got all huffy and turned back around. Why doesn't a piano fall on her head? Boy, Mr. Loring's really late, Michael said. Maybe he died of old age, said Ryan. I think we're going to die of old age waiting for him, I said. Maybe he bored himself to death, said Michael. You boys are mean, said that crybaby Emily. Mr. Loring is nice. She looked like she was going to cry. What a baby. My mom says that all you have to do to get some people upset is to look at them sideways. I tried looking at Emily sideways, but she didn't even notice. Miss Daisy told us she was going to the office to see what happened to Mr. Loring. She told us to be on our best behavior while she was gone. So, as soon as she left the room, me and Michael and Ryan got up and shook our butts at the class. Most of the kids laughed. That's when the most amazing thing in the history of the world happened. Chapter 3. The one-man funky groove machine. First, this weird purple smoke started pouring out on the floor in the front of the music room. Then, the sound of drums started pounding out of a boombox on Mr. Loring's desk. Then the lights went out, and these laser beams started shooting around the music room in all directions and colors. Cool! Suddenly, two men ran into the room and started dancing around. They were wearing football jerseys and basketball caps and holding microphones. Ooh, hats aren't allowed in school, I heard Andrea say to Emily. Those men are going to get in trouble. One of the guys started clapping his hands over his head to the drum beat. The other one yelled into his microphone, "Are you ready for some music class?" The guy screamed. We all looked at one another. We're not supposed to yell in school. But Miss Daisy wasn't there, so I figured it must be okay. "Yeah!" I yelled. I said, "Are you ready for some music class?" The guy repeated. "Yeah!" everybody yelled. "Are you ready to get down?" the guy screamed. "We're already down," somebody yelled. And now, second graders, appearing live and in person at Ella Mentry School, is the one, the only, Jam Master Hind, the one-man funky groove machine. Give it up, y'all! 'Cause Mr. Hyde is in the house. The two guys ran out the door. The drums got louder and lights got brighter. Andrea and Emily put their hands over their ears. That's when Mr. Hind ran the door. He was a lot younger than Mr. Loring. He had on a baseball cap too, and he was wearing this big purple cape with sequins all over it. He had on sunglasses too, even though it was daytime. I guess that was to protect his eyes from the laser beams. "Ooh, he's really cute," all the girls said. "Put your hands together," Mr. Hein screamed. I said, "Put your hands together!" We all started clapping. Mr. Hein danced around a while, and then he threw off his purple cape and started rapping to the beat. Old Mr. Loring is over the hill. So, the Board of Education told him he would have to chill. "My name is Hind, and I'm going to blow your mind. I ain't no music teacher. I'm a born music creature. 'Cause my daddy's name is Amos, but he never became famous. So he took me on his lap and taught me to rap. I can rhyme any line. I got juice like Dr. Zeus. Until I hit it big, I got this teaching gig. So sit back on your pants and dig my new breakdance. Mr. Hein got down on the floor and started spinning around on his back like a top. Then he started spinning on his head. It was cool. Finally, the music and the lasers stopped, and the regular lights came back on. Mr. Hind took off his sunglasses and put on his regular glasses. He was panting like a dog after a hard game of fetch. Me and Ryan and Michael got up and gave him a standing ovation, and the rest of the class joined in too. Well, everybody except for Andrea and Emily. They just sat there with their mouths open and their eyes all big, like they had saw an alien spaceship or something. Now, no, yo, what up, homies? Asked Mr. Hind. Are you our new music teacher? Asked Michael. True that, said Mr. Hind. What do you think I am? Brother, your dentist? Welcome to music, 2nd grade. I'm here to rock your world. I liked Mr. Loring, Andrea whined. Na 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 boo boo on her. Finally, there was something at school Andrea didn't like. Anything Andrea doesn't like, I like. And anything Andrea likes, I don't like. We never agree on anything. I didn't even like the rap music very much, but I think I'm gonna like it now that I know Andrea hates it. Andrea and Emily started in brown-nosing Mr. Hind right away. They were trying to act all cute. What musical instruments do you play? Mr. Hind asked. Sister, I play turntable, Mr. Hind said. Then he took one of those big old black records that my parents used to listen to in the ancient times. He put it on a record player. Then he started sliding the record back and forth while he rubbed the needle against it. These weird sounds came out of the boombox. It was cool. Scratching records will ruin them, Andrea said. You should hold the records by the edges so they don't get scratched. Can you possibly be any more boring? I asked her. Mr. Hind, asked Emily, do you know how to sing the Do-a-Deer song? That's my favorite song. No problemo, sister, said Mr. Hind, and then he started rapping again. Do-a-deer and deer-a-do. The deer is here, and the deer is near. But the doe, she gotta go, 'cause the doe is a no-show. And that doe, she is a pro. That's why she gotta blow. I hate to tell you, Joe, but that doe got run over by a buffalo. So that doe ain't never gonna be no deer no mo. And that's the story of the Do-a-Deer. Me and Ryan and Michael gave Mr. Hind another standing ovation. That's not Do-a-Deer, Emily complained. That's a sad song about a deer that died. She looked like she was going to cry, like always. Chill, sister, said Mr. Hind. It's just a song. Yeah, chill, I told Emily. Andrea said she knew the real Doe-a-Deer song, and she started singing it, but she only got up to the part about the ray, a drop of golden sun, when Mr. Hind held up his hand like a police officer, telling her to stop your car. Whoa! That stuff's old school, sister, he told Andrea. It's so yesterday. I like Mr. Hind's Doe-a-Deer song. Better, I said. Me too, agreed most of the other kids. Aren't we going to learn about all the great composers, Andrea? Whined, like Beethoven and Mozart, and some other guy with a weird name. Oh, sorry. Gershwin and Irving Berlin. Those dudes didn't boogie, said Mr. Hein. I never listened to that stuff. This year in music class, I'm going to teach you how to get down and get your swerve on. We're going to bust a move. I don't think I'm going to like music class this year, Andrea whispered to Emily with a big, worried face. I think I'm going to love music class this year. Chapter 4. The plot to get rid of Mr. Hind. Mr. Hind is the coolest teacher in the history of the world, I told the guys. We were sitting around the vomitorium eating lunch. I traded my peach to Ryan for his cookies because food that has hair on it is disgusting. Ryan will eat anything, though. Once, he even ate a bug. He doesn't act like a music teacher at all, said Michael. The best part is, we'll never have to sing that dumb cookie jar song again, Ryan said. We all did a big high five over that one. At the next table, I could hear Andrea and Emily moaning and complaining about Mr. Hind. He's really cute, and he's a pretty good singer, Emily said, but he doesn't even play any musical instruments. How can you be a music teacher when you don't play a musical instrument? He has no right to be teaching music, Andrea said. I'm going to ask my mom to talk to Principal Klutz. Maybe she can get Mr. Hind fired. Me and Michael and Ryan turned around at that one. What? We shouted. Mr. Hind is a terrible music teacher, Andrea said. My mom is the PTA vice president, and she said that if enough parents complain about a teacher, they can get the teacher fired. It figured that school finally replaced that old dinosaur, Mr. Loring, with somebody cool, and Andrea would start to complain. What is her problem anyway? I think Mr. Hind is incompetent, Andrea said. He wears diapers, I asked. Not incontinent, dumbhead, Andrea said. Incompetent. It means he doesn't have a good job. Or he doesn't do a good job, I should say. Yeah, said Emily. That Emily agrees with everything Andrea says. She's so annoying. I decided to yank her crank. Maybe Mr. Hind isn't a music teacher at all, I told her. Did you ever think of that? What do you mean, Emily asked. I mean, maybe Mr. Loring wasn't fired. Maybe Mr. Hind kidnapped him and stuffed him in a piano and dumped it in the river. Stuff like that happens all the time, you know. Emily looked worried, like I wasn't even kidding. That girl will fall for anything. We've got to do something, Emily said. Then she went running out of the vomitorium. Emily's weird. Chapter 5. Mr. Hind gets funky. If Andrea and her mother get Mr. Hind fired, it will be a horrible disaster. I was determined to stop them, but in the meantime, I had another problem to worry about. Multiplication. We were just starting to learn about multiplication, and I didn't get it. I understood how 2 plus 2 equals 4, but then, how was it possible for 2 times 2 to equal 4 too? I mean, 3 plus 3 and 3 times 3 don't equal the same number. It just doesn't make sense. The way I looked at it, if 2 plus 2 equals 4, and 2 times 2 also equals 4, then addition and multiplication were the same thing. And if they were the same thing, why did we have to learn both of them? I was having a tough enough time with addition and subtraction before this multiplication stuff messed everything up for me. I asked Miss Daisy to explain how 2 plus 2 and 2 times 2 can both equal 4. How should I know? She replied. I don't know anything about math. Miss Daisy is crazy. Everybody line up, Miss Daisy said after she finished putting away her math book. Line up for what? It's time for music with Mr. Hind, Miss Daisy said. Yippee! Shouted me and Michael and Ryan. Boo, said Andrea and Emily. Andrea, I thought you loved music, Miss Daisy said. You've been playing piano ever since you were 4. She must be really tired, I said. Nobody laughed at my joke again, but I didn't care. I'm gonna keep telling that joke until somebody laughs. Mr. Hind doesn't play music, Andrea said. He just makes noise. Well, we have to go to music anyway, said Miss Daisy. Na-na-na-boo-boo on Andrea. I hate her. We went to the music room in single file. This girl, Annette, was the line leader. Andrea and Emily were at the end of the line, which was a first in the history of the world. They always want to get anywhere before anybody else. The music room was empty, but suddenly Mr. Hind swept in and threw off his cape. Should we sit like pretzels, Mr. Hind? Somebody asked. No way, Jose. No way, homie, Mr. Hind said. You sit for reading and writing and arithmetic. In music, you get up and shake your booty. The only way to get down is to get up. Mr. Hind jumped around like a lunatic, and so did we. It was cool. Okay, my little peeps, Mr. Hind said. Today, we're going to learn about percussion. Which one of you shorties can tell me what percussion is? I raised my hand and Mr. Hind called on me. Percussion is when you say bad words, I said. That's cussin', brother, Mr. Hind said. Andrea? Percussion is when one object hits against another object, she said, all proud of herself. Word up, Andrea, Mr. Hind said. Andrea thinks she knows everything. I'd like to percussion her with a stick. Listen up, Mr. Hind said. He picked up 2 rulers from his desk and started hitting things with them. He hit his desk. He hit the chalkboard. He hit the window. He hit his coffee mug. You hear how each object makes a different sound? Mr. Hind asked. That's not music, Andrea said. It's just noise. Oh, that's cold, girl, Mr. Hind said. Sister, anything can be musical. Mr. Hind started running around the room, drumming on everything in sight with the rulers. He's a good drummer, too. Then he put his foot inside a garbage can and started tap dancing around the room while he kept whacking things with the rulers. He's a good tap dancer. It was getting noisy. Andrea and Emily put their hands over their ears. Mr. Hein started making weird drumming sounds with his mouth while he was whacking things with the rulers and tap dancing around with a garbage can on his foot. It was cool. Everybody, except for Andrea and Emily, was dancing around. Mr. Hind started hitting his butt on an empty desk while he was making weird drumming sounds with his mouth and whacking things with the rulers and tap dancing in the garbage can. Mr. Hind is out of his mind. He was doing all these things at the same time when suddenly the most amazing thing in the history of the world happened. The door to the music room opened, and who do you think walked in? It was Mr. Klutz, the school principal. Oh, snap, said Mr. Hind. Mr. Klutz is completely bald. I mean, he has no hair at all on his head. Everything stopped. Mr. Hind stood there like a statue with a garbage can on its foot. Everybody stopped dancing. There was no noise at all. We were all just looking at Mr. Klutz as he stood there in the doorway. You should have been there. It was unbearable. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know what to do. I had to think fast. Finally, I said, Mr. Hind is teaching us cussin'. Is that so? Principal Klutz asked. Percussion, said Mr. Hind. Mr. Hind is hitting things and making way too much noise, said Andrea. He calls that music. Principal Klutz walked over to Mr. Hind. Is that true, Mr. Hind? Asked Principal Klutz. Nobody said a word. Nobody made a sound. I thought I was going to die. True that, sir. I'm afraid it is, said Mr. Hind. He took his foot out of the garbage can. He's damaging school property and causing a disturbance, said Andrea. Are you going to fire him? She asked, with this evil smile on her face. All the kids looked at Mr. Klutz. Mr. Klutz looked at Mr. Hind. Mr. Hind looked at Mr. Klutz, and then Mr. Klutz did the most amazing thing in the history of the world. He started rapping. Mr. Hind is fat, and I'm down with that. Even kids who aren't Russian gotta learn about percussion. So, make some noise, you girls and boys. I rule the school, and I say, Mr. Hind is cool. In school, I'm king, and I say, do your own thing. Now watch me groove, 'cause I can bust a move. Then Mr. Klutz did a little dance and spun on the floor on his back. Mr. Klutz is nuts. With Principal Klutz still sitting on the floor, Mr. Hind came up behind him and started drumming with it on the top of his bald head like it was a bongo. It was amazing. You should have been there. It was almost even better than watching TV. Everybody, except for Andrea and Emily, started clapping. Mr. Klutz got up and said he had to go back to his office and do some important principal stuff. Please continue to get down and funky with your bad self, said Mr. Klutz. Peace out, and then he left. You should have seen the look on Andrea's face when Mr. Hind was playing bongos on our principal's head. I guess she's not going to get Mr. Hind fired after all. Ha ha! It was the greatest thing that ever happened in the history of the world. I hate her. Chapter 6, Beauty and the Beast. I really missed TV. TV turn-off month started and I had to go a whole day without any TV. It was horrible. I thought I was going to die. Believe it or not, I couldn't wait for school to start. There's a TV in our classroom, but we hardly ever get to watch it. So at least I wasn't missing anything there. Plus, we had music class, and music class with Mr. Hind is better than TV anyway. Good news, my little shorties, Mr. Hind said. In honor of TV Turn-Off Month, we're gonna put on a play. Yippee! Shouted all the girls. Plays are fun. Boo! Moaned all the boys. Plays are dumb. This play is going to be off the hook. Dudes, Mr. Hind told us, it's going to be a hip-hop play. I was in a play at day camp last summer, said Andrea. It was called The Princess and the Pea. And I played the beautiful princess. Did you pee right on stage, I asked. That's disgusting. Not that kind of pee, AJ. We're gonna put on Beauty and the Beast, said Mr. Hind. Now, who wants to be Beauty? I do, shouted Andrea and a few of the other girls. Mr. Hind Mr. Hind did, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and guess which smarty pants, brown noser little kids could be perfecter for a refrigerator to fall on. Okay, Andrea is the beauty, said Mr. Hind. Now, which one of you little dudes wants to be the beast? None of us boys raised his hand. No way I was going to be some beast in a dumb play. Don't bail on me, brothers, Mr. Hein said. One of you homeboys has to be the beast or we can't do the play. I looked over at Ryan and Michael. They were both looking at the floor and had their arms folded across their chests. We don't want to be in a play, Ryan said. Oh, I forgot to clue you, Mr. Hein said. The beast gets to lock Beauty in a dungeon and torture her. I'll be the beast, I shouted before anybody else could get his hand in the air. Okay, AJ, is the beast, Mr. Hein said. This play is going to be cool. Chapter 7. K-I-S-S-I-N-G. Me and Ryan and Michael were sitting around the playground at recess. Michael was looking through the script of the play Mr. Hind gave me. "Did you read this, AJ?" Michael asked. "Nah," I said. "Reading's boring." "Well, you might want to read this," Michael said. "It says here that the beast has to kiss Beauty." "What? Let me see that." I grabbed the script. He was right. It said it right there on the last page. Beauty and the Beast kiss. "Ooh," Ryan said. "AJ and Andrea are in love." "Shut up," I said. "I thought I was supposed to lock her in a dungeon." "First, you lock her in the dungeon," Michael said. "In the end, you fall in love, and you've got to kiss her." "That's disgusting," I said. "I wouldn't kiss Andrea if they said she was $1 million. "You're gonna have to," Michael said. "And nobody's gonna pay you a dime." Then Michael and Ryan started singing. "AJ and Andrea sitting in a tree. KISSING. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes AJ with a baby carriage." If those guys weren't my best friends, I would really hate them. "I won't do it," I said. "I'll run away, someplace where they'll never find me." Michael and Ryan sang the dumb kissing song again, so I left. I was really mad. I didn't exactly know where to run to. I figured I'd go to the boys' room and hang out in there for a while. But on the way to the boys' room, I passed the music room. The door was closed, but there's a little window in the door. I stood on my tiptoes and looked inside. Mr. Hind was in there. I put my ear against the door. I could hear a drum machine, and Mr. Hind was rapping. I couldn't make out the words. I opened the door. "Yo, beast," Mr. Hind said. You the man. How's it hanging, bro?" "Okay, I guess," I said. "What are you doing?" "Laying down some beats," Mr. Hind said. "I'm working on my own CD." "Cool," I said. "Are you going to be a famous rapper?" "Word up, cuz," Mr. Hein said. "Maybe someday I'll be a star and you can say I used to be your music teacher." "Hey, you want my autograph once I get famous?" "I might sign them anyway." No thanks," I said. "What's the matter, beast?" said Mr. Hind. "You bummed out 'cause you can't watch TV?" "No, I've got a problem, Mr. Hind." "Be straight," he said. "You can tell me." "I don't want to be the beast." "Why not, dude?" Mr. Hind asked. "The beast is the man." "The beast rules." "I don't want to kiss Andrea Young," I admitted. "Oh," Mr. Hind said. "Kissing's gross, eh?" "Afraid you'll get cooties?" "Well, yeah." "Let me clue you, brother," said Mr. Hind. "Kissing girls is fly. Someday, all you're gonna wanna do is kiss girls. Someday, when you wanna kiss a girl, that girl might not wanna kiss you. It's kinda like getting my autograph. You should do it now, 'cause you might not have the chance later. Besides, it's just a play." It doesn't mean you like her or anything, but Andrea's horrible and disgusting. Mr. Hind sat down at his desk. AJ, when I was a little shorty like you, I thought green beans were horrible and disgusting, he said. But my mama said I had to eat them. She told me to pretend the green beans were something I really liked. So I pretended they were oatmeal cookies. Then they didn't taste quite so bad. See what I mean? I don't like oatmeal cookies, I said. Well, what do you like? Mr. Hind asked. I thought about it for a minute. I like dirt bikes, I said. When I grow up, I'm going to be a dirt bike rider. Race them, too. So, pretend Andrea is a dirt bike, he suggested. Huh? Go ahead. Give it a shot. Mr. Hein said, we need you in there. You're my beast, dude. Nobody else can be beast. You're the beast from the east. Well, okay, I said. I still didn't know if I'd be able to kiss Andrea without throwing up. Chapter 8. The Play. For the next week, the second grade rehearsed the play. After school, I went home and rehearsed my lines some more. I couldn't turn on my TV anyway, so it was good to have something to do. In school, we prepared the whole play. In school, we rehearsed the whole play from start to finish. It was fun, torturing Andrea. The only part we didn't rehearse was the kiss. Mr. Hind said we had to save that for the real show on Friday night. Ryan and Michael couldn't believe that I was really going to kiss Andrea. I told them that Mr. Hind said it wouldn't be so horrible if I pretended she was a dirt bike. I wouldn't kiss a dirt bike, Ryan said. Well, what would you kiss? I asked. I really like football, Ryan said. I'd kiss a football. Ryan's weird. Finally, the night of the big show arrived. Everybody was dressed up in his or her costume. We peeked through the curtains in the multi-purpose room and saw all the parents were there. I was nervous. Mr. Hein told us everything was going to be fine. We were waiting for the curtain to open when Andrea pulled me aside. AJ, she said, I want you to know that just because we have to kiss each other doesn't mean I like you. I don't like you either, I said. Good, she said. I'm glad we agree on something. Kissing girls is gross, I told her. Kissing boys is gross too, she said. I even went to Mr. Hein and told him I didn't want to be in the play because I didn't want to have to kiss you. So did I. He told me I had to pretend that you're something I really like, Andrea said. That's what he told me, I said. I'm going to pretend you're a dirt bike. I'm going to pretend you're an encyclopedia, Andrea said. Fine. So, we did the play. I remembered all my lines, and locking Andrea in the dungeon was fun. Everything was going great, but the whole time, in the back of my mind, I was thinking that soon I was going to have to kiss Andrea. It was a horrible thought. We were a minute away from the big kissing part. The whole cast was up on the stage. Andrea was standing right next to me. I was really nervous. Michael leaned over and whispered in my ear. Remember, she's a dirt bike, he said. Emily leaned over and whispered to Andrea. Remember, he's an encyclopedia, she said. And then, Before I could catch my breath, it was time. The big moment had arrived. The kiss. I leaned over toward Andrea. Andrea leaned over toward me. My heart was beating fast. I closed my eyes. Dirt bike, dirt bike, dirt bike, dirt bike. I was trying really hard to pretend that Andrea was a dirt bike. And at that very moment, the most amazing thing in the history of the world happened. Andrea didn't kiss me. I opened my eyes. Andrea had stepped up to the microphone at the front of the stage. She started singing. The sun will come out tomorrow, tomorrow. She was singing that dumb stick up your chin and grin song from that Annie movie. It wasn't even in the script. Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you tomorrow. It was horrible. Yes, I reckon it was, and I'm sorry for that. And all, but it was still the greatest moment in my life because at least I didn't have to kiss Andrea. All the parents were smiling and nodding their heads. When Andrea finished singing the dumb song, they all went crazy, clapping and cheering and whistling and stamping their feet. Andrea bowed and the play was over. I'm sorry, AJ, Andrea said to me during the standing ovation. I just couldn't do it. I was afraid that if I kissed you, I might throw up. Thanks, I said. Me too. Andrea gave me a hug. Ooh, Ryan said. AJ and Andrea are in love. The audience was still clapping when we noticed Mr. Hind at the side of the stage behind the curtain. He was crying. We all ran over to him. Tears were streaming down his cheeks. I figured Mr. Hind was upset because Andrea messed up the hip-hop play. What's wrong, Mr. Hind? Emily asked. What was that song? He asked, wiping the tears from with his sleeve. It's called Tomorrow, Andrea said. It's from Annie. It's the most beautiful song I've ever heard, Mr. Hein said, and then he started crying again. Mr. Hind is weird. Chapter 9. TV at last. We were supposed to have music on Monday, but Mr. Hind was absent. We were kind of worried maybe he was sick, or maybe a meteor hit his house or something. That stuff happens all the time, you know, but Miss Daisy told us he was fine and that we shouldn't worry about him. A few days later, after we finished pledging the allegiance, Principal Klutz made an announcement over the loudspeaker. Teachers, please turn on the TV sets in your rooms, he said. We all gasped. But it's still TV turn-off month! Just about everybody yelled. Forget about that, Mr. Klutz said. Turn on your TVs. There is a very special tape I need to play. Whatever Mr. Klutz wants. It must have been really important. Even before TV turn-off month, we were hardly ever allowed to watch TV during school. Miss Daisy went to the front of the classroom and turned on the TV. It had been so long since I'd seen TV that I almost forgot what it looked like. But it didn't take me long to figure out what was on the screen. It was this dumb show called American Idol, which people get up and sing dumb songs, and these dumb judges tell them how bad they sound. People vote for them, and one by one, the singers have to leave until there's only one winner. Why the heck did Principal Klutz want us to watch TV with this on it? Some announcing guy said, "Our next contestant is a music teacher at the elementary school." And out walked Mr. Hind. I just about fell out of my seat. Everybody in the class gasped. We couldn't believe it. It was the most amazing thing that ever happened in the history of the world. You should have been there. Our own Mr. Hind was on TV. He's been working on his own rap CD, I told everybody. "This is going to be cool," said Ryan. Mr. Hind stepped up to the microphone. He looked a little nervous. Music started playing, and Mr. Hind started singing. "The sun will come out tomorrow." I wouldn't believe it. Mr. Hind wasn't singing one of his rap songs. He was singing that dumb bet your bottom dollar thing. Tears were rolling down his cheeks while he sang. "Tomorrow, tomorrow." After he finished the song, we all cheered. Even me, and I hate that dumb song. I thought the judges were going to say how terrible Mr. Hind was, because they were pretty much hate everybody, but they didn't. They said he was really good, and when it was announced that Mr. Hind was going to advance to the next round, we all went crazy. Chapter 10. And the winner is... Finally, TV turned off, month ended, and life went back to normal. I watched Mr. Hind every night on that American Idol show. One night, he sang a rap song. The next night, he came out with a guitar and a crazy costume and sang a rock and roll song. He could really play guitar. The night after that, he sang a country song about his dog dying. We all kept thinking Mr. Hind was going to get voted off the show, but he didn't. The other singers were horrible, and the judges said really mean things about them. One by one, they were sent home. Mr. Hind's picture was in the newspaper. Everybody at school was talking about him. We missed music class 2 weeks in a row because Mr. Hind was working on the TV show, but we didn't mind. We were so proud of him. Finally, there was 2 singers left. Mr. Hind was one of them. The other one was this lady with a big nose. One of them was going to be the winner. It all came down to Saturday night. Mr. Hind sang a song, and then the lady with the big nose sang a song. And guess what? Well, I'm not even going to tell you. Because I don't want to. So, na-na-na-boo-boo on you. Okay. That was mean. I'll tell you. Mr. Hind won. He really won. It was the greatest thing that ever happened in the history of the world. Chapter 11. One last song. On Monday morning, everybody came to school excited. We got even more excited when Miss Daisy told us to line up for music class. Yippee! Everybody yelled. When even Emily and Andrea. We couldn't wait to get to music class to congratulate Mr. Hein. Everybody wanted to be the line leader. Finally, we got to the music room, all out of breath, but nobody was there. Where's Mr. Hein? We all asked. I'll bet he's going to make a big entrance like he usually does, Ryan said. I'm ready to get down and boogie, Michael said. So we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited some more. Finally, after about 1,100,000 years, the door opened, and you won't believe who walked in. It was Mr. Loring. Boring, snoring Mr. Loring was standing there, looking as boring as ever. Everybody gasped. "Sit down, please," Mr. Loring said. We all sat down for music class. "Mr. Loring," Andrea asked, "what are you doing here?" "I am here to teach music, of course," he said. "What happened to Mr. Hind?" I asked. "Apparently he quit," said Mr. Loring. "What?" I shouted. "That's not fair." "Principal Klutz asked me to come back," Mr. Loring said, and I agreed, against my better judgment. Everybody moaned. Mr. Loring reached into his jacket and pulled out a piece of paper. "Mr. Hein left a note for you," he said. "Would you like me to read it?" "Yeah!" So, Mr. Loring read Mr. Hind's note. "I hope you dudes don't think I'm rude. Don't moan and cry, 'cause I didn't say goodbye. I had to keep it real till I got a second deal, but now I hit it big, so I quit my teaching gig. You kids are cool. I dig your school. Wherever I go, whatever I do, there's one thing true. I'll always remember you." Emily started to cry. That crybaby. Well, to be honest, we all started to cry. "I realize you're sad that Mr. Hind is no longer here," said Mr. Loring. "Maybe if we sing a song, it'll make you feel better." "Can we sing the Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow song?" I asked. "That will cheer us up." "Yeah." "It'll remind us of Mr. Hind," said Michael. "I was thinking of something else," Mr. Loring said, and then he began to sing. "Who stole the cookie from the cookie jar? AJ stole the cookie from the cookie jar." "Who, me?" "Yes, you." "Couldn't be." "Then who?" "Emily stole the cookie from the cookie jar." "No! Not that song! Anything but that song." Mr. Loring made us sing that dumb cookie jar song over and over again until everybody's name in the whole class was mentioned. It was horrible. I thought I was going to die. Well, it looks like boring, snoring Mr. Loring is back at elementary school for the rest of the year. I guess we're just going to have to put up with him until Mr. Klutz hires a new music teacher. Like the song says, we'll have to stick out our chins and grin. We're going to have to hang on till tomorrow, come what may. But it won't be easy. The end. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Good to see AJ still in fine form. So, as it stands, speaking of books and fine forms, Here's Hank is, at least for a while, done because I have no more Here's Hank books. We have read them. A couple Diary of a Wimpy Kid books came in the mail the other day from the CNIB, the CNIB, and I've got, I don't know, 3 or 4, maybe 5 more of these fun little My Weird School books, which will hopefully get us partway through, well, we'll get through June for sure, and as for last year, I plan to keep doing these over the summer, because you need something to do, right? Right. So, have a good long May 2-4 weekend, and we will be back live from somewhere around here, most likely, in the not too distant future.
Voice Voiceover on. YouTube. Back. Back. Camera chooser. Stop recording. Button.
There we go. Later, folks.